All right, welcome to this explainer on a topic I'm really excited to get into, the myth of fixing yourself. Today, we're going to challenge that incredibly common, nagging desire we all have to alter our inherent traits. We are unpacking why your biggest so-called flaws might actually just be your most radically misused strengths. Let's get right into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. Seriously, why do we constantly try to fix our personalities? Think about it. If you've ever taken a Myers-Briggs or an Enneagram test and walked away feeling like you desperately needed a complete software update for your soul, well, you're absolutely not alone. We look at our natural quirks, maybe our intense focus, our slow pacing, our bluntness, or even our impatience, and we just immediately label them as bugs in our system. We experience this totally universal anxiety of feeling inadequate. We're constantly trying to mold ourselves into some perfectly balanced, idealized version of a human being. But what if that entire premise is literally just backwards?
The source material presents this genuinely profound counter-argument. You were made this way for a reason, with a task only you can do. The core philosophy we're exploring today is that whether your personality is incredibly sharp and intense or broad and blunt, you shouldn't be trying to change it at all. Imagine, just for a second, actually accepting yourself as a finished product rather than a perpetual work in progress. Your specific traits were formed for a specific purpose. So, instead of burning all this energy fighting to alter your inherent nature, your goal should simply be to find the work that requires your exact, unique shape.
To really wrap our heads around this, the source offers two distinct metaphors. First, we have the awl. An awl is a sharp, pointed tool designed for incredibly clean, meticulous, highly specific work. And then, we have the blunt tool. Think of a heavy chisel or a massive mallet. It's slow, it's heavy, but man, it's capable of creating massive openings. Now, what's really fascinating is how this plays out in real life. Think of an awl as that hyper-focused specialist in your office who pores over complex spreadsheets, and the blunt tool as the big-picture manager who just smashes through roadblocks to get a project moving. Neither tool is superior to the other, not even close. They just have entirely different functions in the workshop of life, and both are absolutely valid.
And this brilliantly illustrates the exact trap we fall into. The source puts it so perfectly. If you use an awl for blunt tasks, it gets blocked. If you use it for clean tasks, it never blocks, right? If you have a sharp, precise personality and you completely fail at a broad, heavy-lifting management task, you're probably going to think you're broken. You might think, wow, I really need to fix my personality. But an awl isn't flawed just because it gets stuck trying to do a mallet's job. It just needs to be applied to the fine, meticulous tasks it was actually designed for.
So the takeaway here is that misusing a tool causes the blockage, not the tool itself. When things go sideways in our careers or our relationships, our absolute first instinct is to blame our inherent nature. We think we're the problem. But the source strongly urges us to stop judging our personalities. If you're experiencing friction, just take a step back, look objectively at your environment and ask yourself, wait, am I simply applying my natural traits to the wrong situations? The problem isn't the tool, it's the application.
Now, let's look at the flip side and consider the blunt tool. A blunt tool naturally works slowly. If you have a blunt personality, it might take a bit longer for you to see progress or to navigate a really complex situation. But when it's used right, boom, it creates a massive opening. Its impact is huge. However, actually scratch that. Let's include a really critical warning from the source here. If you take a blunt personality and misuse it on delicate, precise, emotionally nuanced work, you won't just fail, you might completely ruin the project. It is entirely about matching the tool to the task. This whole idea of misused tools is just so powerful. Let's move to and see how this builds into an incredibly famous story we all know. Think about it. Why on earth did the tortoise and the hare even agree to a race in the first place? We've been told this fable since childhood, right? Always to praise slow, steady hard work and to condemn fast-paced laziness. But the source takes this classic story and flips it completely upside down to prove our point about inherent nature. It's a major pattern interrupt, and I love it.
Because here's a totally wild, myth-busting revelation from the source that honestly kind of ruins the childhood fable forever. The tortoise and the hare never actually competed. This competition is entirely an artificial human invention. It's a parable that was created to teach a societal lesson. But if we actually look at the literal nature of the animals, a race makes absolutely zero sense. Real tortoises and real hares don't compete. They're entirely different tools designed for entirely different environments.
Let's break down the actual truth about the hare. The hare was born to be fast for fast tasks. But running fast is biologically exhausting. The hare isn't lazy, it's just biologically exhausted. especially if it decides to treat itself to a massive carb-heavy grass buffet right in the middle of the journey. That sudden fatigue, that overwhelming need for a nap, it isn't some inherent moral flaw of laziness. It's literally just a natural consequence of its biology combined with some really poor mid-journey choices, like stopping to overeat.
If the hare simply managed its energy properly, like if it ate just the right amount of grass and kept its focus, its natural speed would allow it to reach the mountaintop efficiently without even needing to rest. And this applies directly to us. If you're a fast-paced hare in your career, you aren't broken. You absolutely shouldn't try to force yourself to become a tortoise. You just need to manage your own unique, fast-paced nature properly without getting distracted by all those mid-journey snacks.
So the crucial point is, the tortoise, it was born to be slow for slow tasks. It's meant to walk steadily, step by step. And most importantly, it has absolutely no reason to rush. None. The tortoise doesn't need to suddenly speed up to be valuable. It's simply operating exactly as intended. It's doing its specific job, using its specific nature, and doing it perfectly.
Which brings us to a massive realization synthesizing this whole fable. Artificial competition creates false contradictions and failures. Just think about it. Without this artificial, human-invented race, the hare taking a nap in the grass wouldn't even matter, and the tortoise wouldn't ever feel inadequate for being slow. How often do you feel like a total failure just because you're a tortoise being forced into a hare's corporate race? When we force drastically different natures into the exact same competitive metric, we create a world where someone always feels like a failure, even when they are functioning perfectly.
To explain this deeply personal nature, the source introduces a fascinating Korean concept known as jilyeong, which translates roughly to mass. Your mass is your inherent capacity. It's your foundational substance, your highly unique strengths. The vital takeaway here is that your mass should be purposefully utilized, never compared to someone else's. We should be using fables and stories to understand our own unique mass and figure out how to apply it, rather than using them as a yardstick to measure ourselves against someone with completely different traits.
So how do we actually embrace our true nature based on everything we've learned from this source? Well, first, stop the artificial competition. Stop trying to run a race you literally weren't built for. Second, recognize your pros and cons neutrally. Don't judge them, don't hate them, just objectively understand them for what they are. And third, apply your own strengths diligently. If you're an awl, pierce cleanly. If you're a tortoise, walk steadily. Stop trying to be someone else and start using what you were given flawlessly.
We've covered a ton of ground today, shifting from sharp awls and blunt tools to racing tortoises and finally landing on your own inherent mass. It's a lot to think about, I know, but it leaves us with this final thought. How will you stop racing and start actually using your unique mass today? Stop looking at the lane next to you. Understand the tool you were born to be and start looking for the exact right task meant only for you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope it changes how you view your own perfectly designed nature. Catch you next time.